Hey everyone, welcome back to Old Guy REI. In our last video we talked a little bit about our triplex, which was our first purchase, and that was in St. Joseph, Missouri. This time I'd like to go over our second purchase and the notice I got from the city last week. This property was in Milwaukee. It's a duplex. It's an up-down duplex with a detached two-car garage, and we purchased that through what I would call a wholesaler. The seller was selling the property for $248,000, and once we got under contract, we found some things that needed work, so we negotiated a $20,000 credit with the seller and ended up paying $228,000. It currently rents for $1,350 per unit. They're 3-bedroom, 1-bath units each. And one of the first lessons we learned on this property was having to do with lending. So the lender we were using didn't do what they called double-ended closings, which meant that the seller was selling the property to the wholesaler, and then we were buying it from the wholesaler. The lender wouldn't operate like that. So what we ended up having to do was the wholesaler purchased the property from the seller, and then we bought the property from the wholesaler. And that worked out fine. It didn't cost us any more to do it that way. Some of the challenges or lessons that we're learning with this property, we've had it for almost 2 years now, and it seemed like about 6 months after we took ownership, everything broke. We ended up replacing a furnace unit, an air conditioning unit, leaky shower valves, a few different things. The building is in pretty good shape, considering. We also had one tenant leave after the first year we had it, so we had what they call a make-ready. The property management company comes in and paints and cleans and fixes in preparation for the next tenant. So we got a new tenant in the lower unit, and over the course of these couple of years, those two tenants have been on the verge of eviction each. But each time they've gone to court, they've come up with the money that they needed to catch up with on the past due rents. So they're still in the units, and everything is working out so far. One of the other things that has been a challenge from, I would say a challenge from the start, is with the property management company. It was a referral from another property management company, and we had a choice of two. We ended up picking this one, and I think the biggest challenge so far has been the lack of communication. They also have high maintenance fees when they go out to fix something. It just seems like it costs a lot more than it should. The fact that they try to negotiate, or for lack of a better term, play around and let the tenants catch up whenever they want, has been an issue for me, because the tenants have been late on more than one occasion after the eviction threat. So we're in the process of changing property management companies, and we got a couple of other references from some of the groups that we're in. Some other investors in Milwaukee recommended a new company, so we're going to try them out. But that was another thing we learned. We needed to give the current property management company a 60-day notice, so we're still stuck with them for a couple more months. When we first hired the property management company, I expressed my feelings about how I wanted the property kept. I didn't want things falling apart. I wanted the tenants to be happy and safe, and that's what surprised me when I received the notice from the city. Apparently, one of the tenants called in and had some complaints about the condition of certain items. For example, on this notice, there was the fact that the front door had a crack in it, so cold air was coming through. There were some lights that were working intermittently. The tub was chipped and peeling, and some windows were not secure. These are all things that we had gone over with the property manager recently. The tubs had just been refinished, so they should still be under warranty, and we're looking into that. The other items are items that we had already thought had been corrected. That's what I meant about communication. It just wasn't there, and it seemed like when the property management company did fix something, they didn't follow up and make sure that it was done or done correctly. I've asked for photos before and after for all of these repairs, and that was another thing they haven't come up with. So going into the new property management company, I'm better prepared with the right questions to ask, and again, let them know that we expect the properties and we want the properties to be nice and livable, someplace that we would feel comfortable living as well. And to that point, I think there's a long list of questions that we can ask property managers when we're interviewing them, because they're all different. Some will have onboarding fees, which is when they take over a property. If it already has a tenant, they don't need to place a tenant, but they do charge you just to take the property into their company. And then some charge you half a month's rent or a full month's rent when they have to place a tenant. And that's supposed to cover things like their advertising and their showing of the unit, things like that. And then this particular management company that we're leaving has an in-house maintenance crew. So I think their labor rate was about $70 per hour. So that's something else you might want to ask about. One of our other property management companies has a lot more reasonable rates, I feel, but they do have like a 10% upcharge once they send somebody out to do a repair. And even with that 10%, their rates seem a lot more reasonable than our current one in Milwaukee. If I were going to choose a new property management company for any new purchases that we do, I would ask them if they're actually going to go to the property when they take it over and take pictures and just check it out in general. It seems like some management companies just take it over as far as paperwork, and they get things rolling, like getting your rents coming in, finding out where they need to send rents to get them to you, and they don't even go look. That's very important to me. That would be my first question. Do they have someone that will go inspect the property and see its condition when they take it over? Because that's going to be important. If they take it over and something gets damaged after they take it over, if you have pictures of when they started managing and you have current photos of the damage, then that could most likely be billed back to the tenant. And along with that, there's other things like we've had issues where a tenant dropped a cloth in a garbage disposal and they had to send a plumber out to get the rag out. Those kinds of things I would hope would be charged back to the tenant, not the landlord. Along this journey, we've learned a lot about property managers, and we have some mentors and friends who really don't like using property managers and suggest that we manage the properties on our own. It's a little bit tougher for us being out of state, and I understand their point because if you think about it, the property manager does almost make as much as you do on the property. They typically charge 8 to 10% of gross rents per month, and a lot of times it doesn't seem like they do very much for that money. A lot of comments that we get are the fact that property management companies make their money by turning over units. And I've heard some instances where the property managers might make it difficult on a tenant and the tenant leaves, and then the property manager gets to send their crews in to rehab the unit and make their money that way as well. So a lot of things to consider if you're going to invest out of state. And you have to calculate those property management fees when you're analyzing your deals. I think we've been fortunate to this point because out of the 5 different property management companies that we work with, we really only had the one that we have to replace. Things are getting better with each purchase that we make because we're able to apply the lessons we've learned from past experiences. And in the next few videos, we'll be going over the deals that we bought in 2023, which were 3 single-family homes in 3 different states.